Right, and this is the time when I can go crazy. No, that isn't. So my name is Georg Backer, and I am a game designer, producer, and developer. And I've got a company called A Brave Plan. I make games, but I also make games with other people. So I do a lot of game stuff and a lot of narrative. Got very passionate about the narrative design and game design. And my talk today, and let's see if sharing screen works and if it doesn't crash, because that was the funny bit the last time. I'm going to share my screen, and my talk today is called Baby Steps, and it's going to be a weird stretch. So I'm going to try this. I'm going to try what I mean by baby steps. But basically, narrative, art, and audio use common archetypes, cultural and historical and shared knowledge that often are used to implicitly to help create immersive gaming experiences. So, when you look at these images, you immediately get a sense of what's going on. But it's not just that. You also recognize the historical context in some of them. You see that's the Western up there. You kind of like know the location as well. You can get a sense of what's going on because of the knowledge that you have. The mushroom cloud tells you everything you want to know, that there's been a war without compromise, and that there are going to be casualties for many years to come. But that's also kind of like true fictional characters. You look at the Scarecrow, which is in this, I think, Batman's from Batman, and it contains a lot of symbolism that we identify with angst and danger and death. You've got the needles, the mask, the noose. So even if that doesn't, kind of like this creature doesn't exist in the real world as such, it's made out of components that you understand, that you share that knowledge with. And as a game designer, I love to use knowledge and experiences the player already has that quickly immerse them into my world. No lengthy explanations, no telling them how to feel, not having to tell them what to do, or when something is bad, or when something is good, and when they have to be afraid, or when they can feel safe. People's experiences, the culture, the local knowledge from where they live, when they're grown up, to where they work, to global common knowledge, like knowledge that we all have and that we share because we consume media on a daily basis, and different types of it. We are connected, but to also knowledge that is special, the specialized knowledge, and that's still shared. Like I could share something about some specific type of sport, a specific type of hobby with someone from across the world who lives in a totally different setting than I do, and we still understand what we're talking about. So using all of this, I can create scenarios that imply intent, situations, and actions without being explicit. So, but there's a huge assumption though that everyone interprets things the same or in a similar way, right? That knowledge means the same interpretation, that the experiences evoke the same emotions. There's a big difference, obviously, between the continents, between the different cultures, between East and West, and so on and so forth, between the experiences that people have and customs. But these also exist fairly locally, and I've allowed myself to be thematic, to use Santa and Christmas as a theme, or Christmas as a theme, because that is quite an interesting one. Christmas, even amongst the people celebrating Christmas, there are different interpretations and different customs. Everybody knows Santa, who punches through the chimney right in the night to the 25th and leaves presents, and it's a happy thing, it's a joyous thing. You can't wait until you go downstairs on the 25th in the morning and see what Santa brought you. I grew up in Austria. We didn't have Santa there. We had the Christkind, which is the child of Christ, and you can see that in the bottom there, which and we celebrated that on the eve of the 24th of December, not on the 25th. And the closest I experienced Santa was St. Nicholas, or Nikolaus as we called him. And he comes and visits the kids on the 6th of December. But he's, for example, not alone. He comes with this evil-looking creature called Krampus. It's like this creature that comes and walks in with St. Nicholas, walks into your home. And then St. Nicholas, Nicholas, he looks at you and knows how you've behaved for the last year. And if you've been good, you get presents. But if you've been bad, then Krampus will punish you. So for me, for example, the Christmas time was always the beginning was always very anxious because it was basically Judgment Day. So for me, the question is it even possible to design experiences that are universally common, but that have a blank slate moment? How do we design something that, what do we need? What toolkit do we need to do that? Without having to explain everything, without having to rely on that knowledge? Well, curveball. So I became a parent this year. That's not my baby, I just love that expression of that baby. And learning to become a parent, learning how to communicate and to understand with my newborn and what they are experiencing has not just been an amazing experience, but I think it's going to make me a better designer. Because babies are a blank slate. They use survival reflexes to communicate at first, which is basically a lot of crying. Then they cry differently. Then they consciously react. Then suddenly we realize it's not just reflexes, it's like conscious reactions to certain things. And then they learn to experience the world and how to adapt around it. They're very nosy, they want to look at things. They're so interested in how objects, including their own body parts, work and what they can do with them. And then they start making conscious choices, things they like, things they don't like, people, and so on and so forth. And that's just within like the first sort of like year. And to me, that's super interesting because babies are born across all the world in different settings, languages, cultures, but they all start with the same toolkit. They have different types of, a baby's got, as I mentioned earlier, different types of crying, but that, you know, in the first few weeks, you suddenly understand a different type of crying from your baby and the different types of smiling. And each baby is different and they giggle differently and all these things mean different things. So you and your baby, you start to learn to communicate and understand each other over time. And it's like every parent learns this differently. And then when you have all these different babies from the different backgrounds come together for a play date, and luckily in this day and age, it's possible because we have people from, you know, we are like a global society. Babies they still play together, they still understand each other, and they still experience together in the same similar way. To me, that is fascinating as a designer, because I'm trying to figure out how I can create experiences that are universal, that can be universally understood without too much previous knowledge or experience required. To me, there is one game that does it really well, which is Journey, because you have to learn how to communicate with your partner in the game. And you have to learn about this world and what the purpose is and everything. And then at the end, when you finish playing the game, you learn that the other co-partner that was with you in the game wasn't just one person, but several people. So you went through this shared experience in a world that you don't know anything about. You both figured out the purpose, and all you have to communicate together is like a sound, but you still shared an experience together. And that to me is fascinating. And as I said, I'd love to have more experiences that create more experiences that don't rely on all that common knowledge type. And that for me is doing that in a little bit of baby steps at the moment, trying to relearn that. And that's why being a parent and having experiences with my kid is amazing, and I think helps me with that. And that's it.